Has what I've learned been wrong?
Is democracy a value of Judaism?
Well, the point is most likely what you've been taught is wrong, okay? Because the fact is, if you really look at all the sources, it's not so simple.
If Hashem was around and we had a Sanhedrin that was putting people Chayiv Misa and they given Hasra, would we want people walking around who were speaking ill against Hashem and ill against Judaism and starting to rile up people and create Hellenists and or try to undermine the Jewish people as a whole?
Right. So let me point out something too.
Under ideal circumstances.
What does Ness say to have Hasra?
3 warnings, but is that only with the Jew or Gentile also?
The perpetrator has to acknowledge it.
Right.
Unless you're a moron, you're not going to get caught on.
Right. So if you say I don't believe in God, you're out of here. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Right. So you can't do that because God said not to do it. I don't believe God told me not to do it. Okay. Forget it. You're off the hook.
So it's the same.
That seems what Jewish law says, isn't it?
That's what you said regarding the homosexual killing homosexuals. That as long as they just shut up, they're good to go.
What does that say?
It says that it doesn't enjoy killing people.
That's just our Western. That's just do what you want. Just don't be open about it.
No, wait a second. Under Jewish law, when you're talking about the Sanhedrin, if there was a Sanhedrin, there's a throne, and so forth and so forth, a guy went right up to you and said, "Hey, I'm eating a Big Mac right here. Boy, is it really good?" And the person says to you, "Do you know, it says in the Torah that it's forbidden to eat the Big Mac." And the guy says, "I don't believe it." Right? Then that guy is not punishable.
Wait, if he says I don't believe it, he's not punishable?
Right. Just gives him most of it. I don't believe God told me it's usher.
So one way to never be Chayiv Misa then.
Yeah? Do you understand what I'm getting at? Is that you pushed me into a corner because you guys have said, gee, in ancient Israel, they were like an Inquisition. Which means that an Inquisition used to take people in, torture the living daylights out of them until they confessed the crime, and then they would kill them. That wasn't that's not the way Sanhedrin works.
So the Jewish Inquisition would be like, do you do this? And the guy says no, and they'd walk on.
Right. Does that make any sense?
So was Hellenism able to flourish because the Jews allowed it, or because?
So the point is what you're now getting at is it true that Judaism didn't have any punitive way of maintaining its law and order when it was necessary? No, because there was some power in the court to maintain law and order, but it had strict guidelines on that. The point is,
well, the Bezdin can go out and punish people. They could put them in pits. They can.
Yeah, there was certain constructs, but what were those constructs based on? See, what you're telling me is like, I guess it's not exactly where I thought we were going this year, but you're basically introducing the issue. It's like people have thrown out these ideas to you, and here's these ideas, and then all of a sudden you put these ideas under the microscope and say, what the heck do I believe in? So yeah, in the comfort of your nice home here in Canada, you can sit there and say, gee, if there was a Jewish country in Israel, we would have laws, and everyone would have to abide by the law, and there wouldn't be freedom of religion. But that's Israel. There wouldn't be freedom of religion, and we have a nice country, and we would only impose upon people in a certain way. But the fact is that there wouldn't be freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is not really a value within Judaism because we don't need freedom of religion. On the other hand, in Canada, we've benefited from freedom of religion, and it's touched us.
Well, current Israel does have freedom of religion.
It does have. You're right. You're right. But we'll get into that. But the fact is, it doesn't have the same definition of freedom of religion as maybe in the States, but there's a pretty broad understanding of freedom of religion. But the fact is,
well, they ban an entire religion from there.
No, but the fact is, what?
The Baha'i.
What the Baha'i?
The entire religion is banned from Israel.
No, they aren't.
They can only go there like on special visas or whatever.
The Baha'i temple is in Haifa.
Yeah, and apparently like they can't come to Israel except to go like straight there and out.
That might be because a lot of the Baha'i are in Iran, where they are totally persecuted.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, but the fact is, see, what I'm getting at is that people have a perception or develop certain perceptions of things without actually understanding what it is that they are perceiving or creating with their perceptions. And that they have a tidbit here, put it together, but they don't understand that all those little tidbits may create contradictions. It's like, you see pharmacies talking about we can balance all your drugs because you go to this doctor here and he gives you this medicine. You go to that doctor there, he gives you that prescription. Okay? You get to a certain age and you have 10 different prescriptions, and each, all from 10 different doctors who have no idea what another doctor's giving you. You go to your pharmacist and he says, wait a sec, this prescription from Dr. A cannot interact with this prescription from Dr. B, because the result will be right. So we got to amend this. So they get in touch with these doctors and say, hey, you prescribed A. Well, the guy is actually also taking B, and the doctor's good. He says, well, he can't be taking A then. So what do you want to do? Okay.
So how do we then therefore get a, which I guess you're going to talk about?
Well, the point is
that balanced perspective of what ideal Judaism within when.
The fact is the first thing to do is to recognize that when you come to the table, you come with preconceived notions. Okay. And the fact is, you come, like, for example, what was wrong with the Inquisition? So there's two possible ways to understand what's wrong with the Inquisition. One possible way is, I totally think that the methodology they were going to use was absolutely correct. Just their understanding of the players was wrong. In other words, if it was Jews forcing Christians, it would have been totally okay. Because it was Christians forcing Jews, it wasn't okay. But really, in theory, forcing someone else is not a problem. That's one way of looking at it. Now, I'll tell you where this actually touches a very sore spot in a lot of people. How you define the Holocaust. Is the Holocaust and by the way, suddenly people don't recognize this when you use the term Holocaust.
Right.
Okay? Is the Holocaust because the Nazis hated Jews? Or is the Holocaust because the Nazis tried to impose their will on other people through their methods?
Well, Holocaust is different.
Well, then the question is, why do you say the Holocaust was different?
Because it killed you whether or not you were a good German. Their views were just total.
Has nothing to do. So you're saying it has something to do with being Jewish?
They were still out. I mean, unlike the Inquisition, you could.
Yeah, you were not comparing to the Inquisition. Now we're talking about Nazism.
The problem with the Holocaust, I guess, from that point, is there's no out. You're just.
No, okay. Wait a second. You're getting into something else. You're getting into, now this gets into different types of hatred.
Right.
There's one type of hatred that says, listen, I hate the idea. So a person changes the idea. There's another viewpoint on hatred, is the person hates a person. There's a difference between, they talk about the different types of Jewish hatred, Jewish type of anti-Semitism. There was the theological anti-Semitism. I hate Jews because they have this belief. So if you convert, you're not going to be hated. That's one type. So Pablo Cristiani, who was perhaps one of the most infamous Meshummeds in Jewish history.
Meshummed?
A person converted to Christianity, became a violent anti-Semite, okay, because he wanted to save his people. He loved Jews so much that he wanted to save his people from eternal damnation. So Pablo Cristiani became one of the worst Meshummeds in history. Actually, he was the one who invented the Yellow Star. And his viewpoint, his form of anti-Semitism was theological. I hate Jews because of what they believe in. If they drop their belief and become good Christians, I'll love Jews. And that was fine. Then there's another form of anti-Semitism. The other form of anti-Semitism is racist anti-Semitism, which really the Nazis are the worst example of. I hate a Jew because they're a Jew. And there's no way out. The Jew could be the Pope. Still a Jew, I still want to kill him. Now that's a different aspect, but that's not what I'm getting at here. What I'm getting at is a different question about the Holocaust. Was the evil of the Nazis because of what they did to Jews, or the evil of the Nazis because of what they did to others? That's a big question about the Holocaust. Okay, I've heard there's backwards and forwards. You hear people talking about the Holocaust is specifically what the Nazis did against the Jews, and other people saying that the Holocaust should be referenced to all the evil that Nazis did in the Second World War. Now, in the argument to say the Holocaust should be specifically with against the Jews, it should be because not just because of the numbers, because there was a specific type of hatred against the Jews, which was a little bit different than their general hatred of all others. But what the
if you were a Jew, or if you were a gypsy, if you were gay, if you were
but they did have special treatment for the Jews.
They hated the gypsies, but they didn't hate gypsies as badly as they hated Jews. But that's a different issue. But the point is, though, is that what do you have against the Nazis? Are you saying that? And by the way, the point is that Nazis' most extreme example, but the fact is what you're saying when you talk about freedom of religion or stuff like that, is what you're saying is we're in favor of freedom of religion because it's in the best interest of us as Jews to support freedom of religion by people of another religious perspective. But if we were in our own land, we would never abide by this freedom of religion in terms of how we would treat them. Whereas we don't think there's any value in this freedom of religion just because it's self-serving, we like it here? Or do we sit there and say, you know something? This freedom of religion has a value to it, and we benefited from it, and therefore maybe it does have a value even if we had our own land. And then comes an issue, so how do I understand it within the context of Judaism? It's a much more difficult question. The fact is we live in North America living with varying values, and you hear people talk. Do you ever hear rabbinic groups? We live in a great country that offers us freedom of speech and freedom of religion and all these other freedoms, right? And we're supportive of these ideas. What are they? Just with false tongue, gee whiz, I better say this because it's in our best interest. But if I was in charge, I would never give that other group these kind of freedoms? Or is it that they actually believe what they're saying and mean what they say? Then how do they integrate it in their understanding of Judaism? Now, what I was trying to tell you was this guy came to the table to a shir once, and he said, of course Judaism believes in freedom of religion. I said, really? Can you please explain that? And quoting psukim that said, this is what we would do to idolaters, and a pretty negative feeling towards idolatry, guy left with a little bit of a problem. Because he said, wait a second, I see a value in freedom of religion. We benefited from it. Fact is, though, is that makes things a little bit more difficult. Point is, though, I was just starting off this discussion with the simple idea that we bring to the table whenever we come to the table to learn. We come to the table with, we come to a shir to learn. We come to hear from someone else to say. And what we often don't recognize is that, wait a second, I have my own preconceived knowledge. I have my own preconceived values. Right? Like, I'll give you an example. So it's a big. This was actually a major halachic issue, hashkafa issue. It's a halacha gibum, right? Okay. What's halacha gibum?
the guy dies, his brother marries his widow if he has no kids?
Two brothers, right? Two brothers. The wife of one of those brothers dies childless, right? The other brother has to sleep and thereby create a new marriage.
One of the brothers dies.
Right. Right. Sorry. The other brother dies. So, say Reuven and Shimon, two brothers, right? Shimon is married to Leah. Okay. Okay. Shimon dies. Reuven has a commandment to sleep with Leah.
As long as they never had kids.
Right. Right. As long as they never had any kids. As long as there are no kids. Even if he has a kid with another wife, he's childless. Okay. Reuven has to sleep with Leah. Right. And thereby through this process marrying Leah. Great. Okay. So Reuven and Shimon are brothers, and so forth and so forth. Shimon dies, and you go over to Leah and say, "Hey Leah, guess what? Reuven here, you gotta sleep with him." Now, how do you think many women would respond to that?
Ew.
What?
Ew.
You.
Depends on how much money he has.
Well, the fact is that first of all, do you even know your brother-in-law? May not. Could happen, but let's say you know him. You don't necessarily like him. It's not very romantic, right? Okay? So the point is that concept comes up to you and says, there's a mitzvah for Reuven now to have relations with Leah, and that's it, and so forth. What?
Consensually?
What consensually? What do you mean consensually? Reuven and Leah have to get married. If Reuven comes over and says, "Okay, Leah,"
she allowed to say no?
No. Reuven can say. Nowadays we do chalitza. The fact of the matter is that no, Reuven can say no. Yeah.
That was almost like accepted, right?
It was. Reuven was under an obligation, and Leah was an obligation. They both had the mitzvah of Yibum.
Right.
Which means you went up to both of them and said, "I don't know if you met each other before, Reuven, Leah. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, your sister-in-laws. Maybe you never met. Your in-laws. You maybe never met before, and so forth and so forth. Listen, let's just set a time and place, and no, we're not doing any ceremony. There's no ceremony here. Set a time and place. Go get a hotel room, and then go get an apartment because you're now going to be husband and wife." Now,
they do chalitza then.
If the husband, if Reuven agrees to chalitza. Now, if you look in terms of the Gemara, if you ever read the Chumash, how is chalitza looked upon?
Well, they literally spit on it.
Well, no, chalitza is looked upon as Reuven. If you don't want to do this, right, then you are blankety blank, and we're going to do chalitza. Chalitza is not like. Well, chalitza is sort of looked upon pretty, and the Chumash is looked upon pretty negatively. Because you don't want to fulfill your obligation here.
But nowadays it's looked at as positive?
Well, no, I'm not saying what nowadays. I'm not saying what people look at. You had an interesting response. You basically said, "Ooh, it's like most women would sit there and say, listen, I don't want to sleep with someone I don't even know. Or if I know him, I know him as my brother-in-law." Right? What are you talking about? Now, the fact is that the truth is, if you look back in terms of stories, there's two famous cases of women who went to extremes to try and fulfill at least the concept of Yibum.
Ruth and Tamar.
Ruth and Tamar, perfect. Tamar said, "Hey, this is very important. We gotta do Yibum," and she arranges to do Yibum with Yehuda. And the fact is, there's a whole issue there what the relationship was after the Yibum and so forth and so forth. So that's another issue. And then of course Ruth. And according to the Medrash, the minute Boaz impregnates Ruth, he dies. Right? Ruth was interested in getting the mitzvah of Yibum done. Now, that would seem to be a different sexual ethic than the sexual ethic that is prevalent today. Now, the question now arises...
Well, what if it was the opposite?
What?
Let's say it was Boaz who snuck into Ruth's tent.
What do you mean?
Like it was the opposite, like the pursuer was, like Yehuda pursued Tamar.
Yehuda didn't pursue Tamar.
No, I'm saying, what if it was the opposite?
Well, the fact of the matter is Tamar would have been... That's into major issues of whether it's halachic demanded yibum, halachic demanded yibum, so forth and so forth. But that's not where I'm trying to go. The fact is what I'm trying to get at is the response within our modern sexual ethic is that there's a tie here of romance and a value of romance, a value of a relationship.
Right.
Here we have a halachic obligation that seems to have nothing to do with the relationship of the two, and yet. How do you deal with it? So the fact is that actually has been approached by Poskin, where Poskin basically have argued that chalitza does have a overriding value in our world today. There's been a move in community. The Sephardic community has some Sephardic communities still practice Yibum, and there's a movement to try and say no, maybe we should introduce chalitza because
I thought they banned it. I mean, you can't fuss or deraisa a mitzvah.
No, there's an issue of the Yibum has become, and that's part of it. The question is Yibum has become less prevalent. Part of it is because of an overriding other sexual ethic in terms of the relationship between the two people involved in a relationship. And therefore chalitza is now taking on a more positive ethical perspective.
Well, I guess there's other things to talk about than Yibum thing, so go on. But the question is, the idea of today's, from my understanding of Yibum is that the reason we don't like practicing of it is because you wouldn't have the right machshavas. You'd be more interested in sleeping with a person than trying to impregnate her. But I feel like back in the day, they weren't hot-blooded animals either?
That's not the point over there. The fact of the matter is that what's really being said over there is that the motivations that we usually consider to be the proper motivations in a relationship, i.e. the fact that I want to have relations with this person because of the personal connection between the two of them, because they're in love, takes away from the mitzvah of Yibum. So the argument is that what we would consider to be the proper ethical motivations for two people to hook up interferes with the proper motivations for the practice of Yibum. Now, what does that say about our viewpoint? But the fact is
about people hooking up back in the day to begin with.
No, so the point is that what you're talking about is exactly that. You're talking about a much more complex model than most people want to deal with. And the fact is, what were their considerations? And the truth is that the considerations are much more extensive. And the point is, though, is that you come to the table with ideas.
So where do you
when people come up to you and say, you want to get married, there's a value in marriage. Anyone talks about the value of marriage. Why is there a value in marriage? Why are we against premarital sex? Why are we against extramarital relations? Why do we see the value in the sexual conduct that is promoted by halacha? So people throw out all these ideas. And yet they throw out all these ideas and you sit there and say, okay, now what do you do with this? How do you deal with that? And the fact is that you develop values. And those values, and they're not, some values are just come even from your own perspectives, from the way you were brought up, from the ideas that you have. And lo and behold, you don't recognize that when you deal with those values and you get involved in Torah, you get involved in the fullness of understanding life, you understand that your values are going to be under a tremendous amount of investigation. That's why I go back to issues like freedom of speech, freedom of religion. We live with all these values.
So how are we then supposed to have an unbiased, open examination of the Torah to establish what values we really should have, since everyone has their bias?
So the fact is that what you're saying is that's not what we're supposed to do.
Oh, that's what you're insinuating.
No, I'm not. What you're doing is you're already taking conclusions on what I'm saying. And you're already building upon those conclusions. Now, why are you jumping ahead to the conclusions that I haven't said? Which you're implying that I did say. And by the way, there's a reason why. Why?
Preconceived notions.
No?
Preconceived notions.
It's extension of preconceived notions. Because you've been told that we develop Torah concepts in an unbiased way. Okay? Well, like people think in terms of halacha, right? Anyone who thinks that halacha is objective in a classical scientific understanding of objective is incorrect. The fact of the matter is when we talk about Shivim Panim L'Torah, when we talk about disagreements in halacha concept, it means that Gedolim saw the halacha differently. Now, why did they all see the halachic differently? Because their shikul hadas was different. Now, why did they have different shikul hadas? Because the weighing of opinions. Objectivity is to weed out the irrational. When the Gemara says tiyufta, what the Gemara means is that I've proven you wrong. Good. So every time you come across in the Gemara where someone says tiyufta, and by the way, it's not so simple to say that that's actually always what it always means, but generally what tiyufta means is proving me wrong. You've given me a logical argument that shows that my position is illogical. But every time you see a machlokas, Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, Rabbi, and Abaye, anytime you see a machlokas, it's because they could not prove the other objectively wrong. Based upon your a priorities, based upon your starting points, based upon the logic that you have come to a totally logical conclusion to explain the events, to explain the information. So why does one take this position and one take that position? Because of shikul hadas, the weighing of alternatives. And why is that based on? Good question. But it's not because one thinks the other one's one is proving the other to be wrong. It's a fact is that you take this amount of information, you organize it, and the way you've organized it is into this conclusion. Then another person came around, another gadol came around and took all that information, put it together, and came to this conclusion. And every time they tried to show that that something was illogical in their argument, and A did not lead to B, but well, they can never prove that. This A is that's totally logical based upon the originating assumptions, and this one is right this way. And you look in Meforshim. You know, there's an interesting article. I think it's by Rabbi Moshe Weinberger in a journal of Halacha and Contemporary Study on women in the study of Torah, and he shows the machlokas between the Satmar Rav and Rav Yosher Ber Soloveitchik. And he basically says, if really you look at it, they're starting with two starting points, two Gemaras. The two Gemaras contradict each other. One Gemara seems to imply that that there's a value in women learning. I think the Gemara is a Gemara that says that b'mei Chizkiyahu, even the young boys and young girls knew the ins and outs of Kadshim, of Tum and Tara. They said that young boys and girls used to know the details and analysis of Tum and Tara, which implies that the young girls had tremendous Torah knowledge and were able to deal with Tum and Tara.
The things that didn't apply to them.
Okay? Pardon?
Things that didn't apply to them.
No, in those days it's Chizkiyahu. The Gemara says it's made Chizkiyahu, which they had to do because it dealt with Kadshim. There was the Beis Hamikdash.
No, it doesn't.
Right? Okay, so that was it. And then there's another Gemara that says that women shouldn't learn. Right? The Gemara, the Mishnah in what is it, Mishnah Sota? I forget where it says that that there's a problem with women learning. So how do you reconcile those two Gemaras? So he said the Summer Rav came to one reconciliation, yielding the fact that women shouldn't even learn Hebrew because they shouldn't be involved in learning at all. Okay, and therefore girls in Summer do not read because they should not even be able to read Rashi because Rashi is Torah Shabbat Peh. The Rosh Ber made it very clear that women can learn Gemara. Women can learn. That's why he gave the first Gemara shir he gave the first Gemara shir in Stern because he wanted to make it clear that he was supportive of this teaching Gemara to women. Okay, two different conclusions coming from the same sources, both logically working out every issue and having their answers and explanations. Could you prove one wrong? Try. Fact of the matter is, we're totally, inherently, internally consistent. Why did one go one way and the other one went another way? Something with Shikla das. Which I don't want to use the word subjectivity, but they brought other concepts to the table. Now, that's a significant understanding. The fact of the matter is we come to the table with preconceived notions. Those preconceived notions are always supposed to be under consideration and under attack by ourselves through analysis. Okay? We have to consider things. Okay? Yibum raises an issue in terms of the romantic concept of relationship between man and woman. It does raise a lot of issues. But the fact is you have to think about that and work it through. But on the other hand, the point is in many ways people don't even know how to deal with it because everyone wants to talk in this sort of like black and white objective thing. This is what people think and this is right. This is what Judaism says. Without understanding that, hey, Judaism really says it's a machlokas. There's variant opinions. Okay? I can go through a lot of issues in terms of variant opinions. Okay? And the fact is that from the biggest things, but especially as people become dogmatic in their viewpoints. So people who are really pro, let's say, a very right-wing position in Eretz Yisrael, they'll sit there and say, and everyone knows that Torah says you can't raid land for peace. Yeah, except the Gedolim, the majority of Gedolim that say you can. But let's not confuse you with the facts, right? And the other way around, right? No. The point is that it's just what I'm getting at is you come to the table already thinking. Now your argument with freedom of religion. We live under freedom of religion in Canada. Okay? Is it only a self-serving thing? We really don't value it. We're thankful they value it because it's in our own interest, but if we were in charge, we would never apply this value?
Maybe it's the difference between value and tolerate.
Yeah, okay, but
value.
No, what he's saying, what I'm saying is you live, okay, you live under freedom of religion.
Yes.
Okay? You don't think it has any value? Or you're basically saying, because these idiots want to abide by this value, I benefit. But I really don't think it's a value. Is that what you believe?
How would... Yes.
That's what you really believe?
Yes.
So
because given the it's the same idea of why I guess the idea of pluralism, how when you have two agree to disagree, well, not agree to disagree, that's a bad example. So I say I value all religions equally. How could I possibly make that statement?
Right.
And be religious myself.
Mm-hmm.
I feel there's a distinct hierarchy.
Does freedom of religion say you don't have such a hierarchy?
Well, to some degree, yes. Because by saying you're free to practice and believe whatever you want as long as you have this certain guideline. Well, whatever those guidelines are, which are getting more blurred and blurred every day.
See, one of the things that gets me.
How do you establish? Yes.
What you see. What you're stating right now is really, really intelligent. Okay. The problem is that there's a lot of people don't recognize there's a value in the quandary and understanding the living with the quandary. You understand there's a value in religion that I believe that it is true. Yes. Then you will also say, you know something? There seems to have been some benefit of me living in a country where people do not apply such a standard to me. For these people have allowed me to abide by my religious belief. And some of these people are atheists. Gee whiz, you know something?
Preaching atheists.
Well, yeah, but the point is these people who are atheists actually have a tolerance. So that might be a value to atheism. But that's problematic because don't I think there's a strong necessity for God? But gee whiz, if I believe in God, I cannot really be that tolerant to someone who does not believe my perspective of it. It would seem I would not be tolerant. And could I really, how would I feel about persecuting someone for their religious beliefs, given the fact that I wasn't persecuted for my religious beliefs? Well, guess what? That's living with a quandary. And living with a quandary is a good thing, because it makes you start thinking.
Okay, I guess the biggest question is, what are real religious ethics within Judaism?
Okay, you know something?
Am I missing something?
No, you're getting to the real point of where we have to start. What I'm getting, what I'm saying is that what you are now dealing with is contradiction and conflict. Okay?
Yeah.
You have. Let me put it to you give an example. Do you know what led to Einstein coming up with the theory of relativity? What was that made him come up with the theory of relativity? Do you know what happened? According to Newtonian physics, light didn't bend. In the 1800s, they found that light bent around the sun. Okay? That couldn't be explained according to Newtonian physics. Okay? So all the scientists in the world went trying to figure out how can light bend around the sun. Okay? They came up with all these different theories. This, that, whatever. They came up with theories and theories and theories. Why? Because they had a contradiction. This theory leads to A, but the fact is B. What are we going to do? So they spent years, all these different theories, coming around and saying this, that, so forth and so forth. Okay? All these different theories to try and figure out an answer for Newtonian physics. What did Einstein do?
Threw it out.
He said, wait a sec. Let's re-understand what's going on here. Let's write a new program. And then he wrote his theory of relativity. He said, you know something? He basically said, you know, there's two parts of the symbol. There's two parts to the theory of relativity. I forget. There's a general theory, and then there's the specific theory, and so forth. He said the truth is a general theory. Almost anyone else similar to Einstein could have figured it out. He says, but those guys were so busy trying to figure out some way to reconcile the problem with Newtonian physics that they spent all this time trying to work this out. If they just would have thought a little bit differently, other people besides me could have come up with a general theory of relativity. But they were so interested in trying to make it work, they couldn't just let their minds see something different. He said, but the special theory, that was a little bit of work on my part. He was very proud of it. But the fact is, now the truth is about all this stuff, so forth and so forth. There's a story of Chaim Weizmann, you know, the first president of Israel. That he was a big Zionist, of course, and he was a big biologist in England, and he was very instrumental in the Balfour Declaration. And supposedly he was on a ship with Einstein. I think they crossed the Atlantic Ocean, and so forth and so forth. And here, Weinstein himself was a big biologist. Like he was a big scientist, and he spent time with Weinstein on the ship. And he says, when he came over, he says, "So, do you understand the theory of relativity?" He says, so he says something like, "I have no idea what it's talking about, but I can tell you one thing for sure. Einstein knows what it's talking about." But the fact is what I'm getting at is like this: is that we have so many issues. And we are trying to, you have these issues and you're jumping to conclusions with recognizing, sit back, live with the question.
But, okay.
Yes, there's a problem. The problem is that being a believer in a specific religion, by definition, challenges the concept of freedom of religion.
More than that, our religion itself, specifically Judaism, is so structured and does have a standard. And with that, let's just take in general terms. What a lot of people don't recognize is that devout members of religions don't necessarily believe in freedom of religion. We see that in our world today. Okay, ISIS has no patience for freedom of religion. Okay, the Taliban blow up idols, and in Afghanistan, everyone went crazy when they blew up these major idols in Afghanistan, which were like world wonders and so forth and so forth, because they're so large and so forth. They're Muslims. What do you expect them to do? To know? All of a sudden, oh no, there's no real religion. Okay, the fact of the matter is, yes, you're right. The point is, and therefore, and pursuant to Judaism, it would seem that there's a problem with not taking very strong acts against idolatry. Now, on the other hand, we live in a world of Western values which we have benefited from a value called freedom of religion. And in many ways it tells us, hey, it's something, in fact, in many ways, we as Westerners would look negatively upon, like, what ISIS is doing. No one sits there and says, gee, I totally understand what ISIS is doing. I mean, they just don't believe in free religion, but that's cool for them. But no, we think it's wrong. The point is that I would sit there and say that Judaism doesn't like that form of not observing freedom of religion either. Now the point is how do you understand that? That's your dilemma. Guess what? Feel the dilemma. Feel the dilemma. I don't know. Then what?
Then you work on it.
How?
Through study, through investigation, through putting some hours into it, years into it. We'll touch upon it here. But the fact is the first thing you have to do is recognize you come to the table with preconceived notions. You come to the table with ideas. Those ideas are going to create issues and questions and challenges. And then the job of Torah study is to understand. Work it through. And usually that way of working it through is through recognizing the depth of Torah study in its multidimensional nature. That's usually where you start seeing some insight. You got that?
So then, if I'm supposed to say, okay, let's say I want to have a completely objective approach to Judaism and I guess let's call it religious ethics, right? So I am starting off.
Totally objective?
Totally objective.
Okay, so you're not human.
Right, okay.
Okay, so I, not being of human nature, okay, where do you come from? Because you're not human.
So how are you supposed to balance your objectivity?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You're making a very significant statement. You're human. Guess what? By definition, you're subjective. You know something? And where do we learn that? What famous statement that we have learned from the language of the Bible that tells us that there's a subjective nature to human beings?
You put in the Torah?
It's not in the Bible.
Oh. Oops.
I didn't say Torah, I said Bible. What?
It's all relative.
Hanach Lanar al pi darcho. Teach the student according to his way. Not what you think is the right way, according to his way. Know him. Start with him. Start with him. And you want to see further arguments for seeing the subjectivity of individuals? Then go look at all the different tzaddikim that are mentioned in the Chumash. Guess what? They're all different. Okay? You know, I'm going to tell you, I told you this story before with Rebbe, but the fact is that Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak Avinu were different personalities. So there's this question people sort of act half in jest. What happened to all the people that Abraham made from? And now, you know, it says that Anashim Sha'asu.
They became Gerim after, like, and their Gilgalim.
What?
I heard that, like, the Gilgalim, like the conversation.
What happened to them at that? I'm talking what happened in those days.
The Torah, so
he made all these people from, you know, Noachites and observers, whatever it is. What happened to all of them? Chassidus Rebbe said, Yitzchak turned them off. Why? Well, Yitzchak wasn't as friendly as Avram. What do you mean? Yitzchak wasn't friendly? He says, you don't get it. There's some Chassidus Rebbe said this. He says, Avram, his friendliness came from his own being. He was inherently chesed. So everyone felt it. Yitzchak knew it was right to be a Baal Chesed. But that wasn't his personality. So Yitzchak tried really, really hard to be friendly, but it just didn't come out the same type of friendliness of Avram. So all these guys who are used to Avram's friendliness, they didn't, eventually, you know, it's like Yitzchak. Now, do I really think that's what happened? No. But what it does recognize is that Avram and Yitzchak were two different personalities. Okay? And the truth of the matter is that it affected their avodas Hashem.
They looked alike, though.
Yes. Okay.
So the next question would be, is how would a person take a balanced, subjective look at themselves to start off on their journey without looking at preconceived notions that would basically
no, what do you mean not looking at preconceived notions?
With balancing preconceived notions versus the ability to grow.
So the fact is, how do you know what preconceived notions would stifle growth?
Well, I don't know. I'm asking that. How would you know in yourself that you have biasness, and then if you find something that doesn't fit well with you, but it's the truth, or it seems like you should be focusing on more, and then...
So already you're always working with shoulds. You say, well, start with your questions. Start with the issues that you're dealing with. Start with what your questions are. Your honest questions. Not hearing about what I should be asking, something like that. Start with your honest questions. Start with, if freedom of religion is your question, if you're sitting there and saying, I've had people come up, someone come up to me and say, I have a problem with the mullah. How can you kill all those people? It sounds like we're Nazis. Okay, and that's a good question. Let's start there. Okay? And don't start with the answer, well, which some people really don't even know if they're saying it is, no, because we're right and they were wrong. I mean, when a person makes I can't believe how stupid some people are. I mean that honestly. I mean, the fact is, someone comes up to you and asks a question. Doesn't the Mali call for genocide? Yeah, it's a problem. It really is a problem. So the answer is, the answer is that the Amaleki, they're inherently evil. So since they're inherently evil, it's okay to, how do I know? Because I know they're inherently evil. I said, so you're saying genocide against the people you've already defined as inherently evil is okay. Good. Do you understand that was a Nazi argument? Do you understand that?
So
wait a sec. Do you understand that? You're basically saying, me and the Nazis both agree that genocide is okay. We just disagreed on the object. Are you really saying that? Now, when you confront a person with that, hopefully they're smart enough to say, no, I don't really want to say it. But I can't believe people actually think that way. Why? Because they don't understand the depth of the question. They don't understand the fullness of the issue. The problem is, with the argument is that genocide is wrong. It's wrong.
So what?
Right?
So then we have to look at Jewish ideas and try to understand what they really are?
Yes. And you have to sit there and say, gee, I don't understand this.
And what if you come to the conclusion that, wow, it really is something that that makes us look really bad from ethical
balance. What happens? Guess what?
Wow.
Yeah. It's going to cause a lot of problem for people not to be religious.
Okay, but then what?
So hopefully they run into people who can give real answers.
And even once you get to, what if the real answer is that there is an ethical unbalance?
What if the real answer is I don't know? That's the real issue that a lot of people have to sometimes accept. Because the fact is you're right. I don't have an answer, which most people can't say. Problem is, guess what? I don't have an answer. It bothers me, I don't have an answer.
Then what?
Then the question is how to live with your non-answers.
No, the trouble isn't always that people can't say it, it's that people can't live with it. If someone says they don't have an answer, you just can't accept
and that's why a lot of the problem is people think they always have to have an answer. The truth is, in any world, any brand of theology, and by the way, we said this last week, right? If you're an atheist, you got to live with the problems from atheism. If you're a theist, you got to live with the problems of theism.
So basically choosing which problems you'd rather have.
Maybe. That's a lot of the issue. A lot of the issues people think that there's such simple answers. And the fact is we always give the nice simple answer.